Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down everything you need to know in the world of sports, and you can't teach that. Bada boom. Man, the people in the room, G Money Grant Mitchell, how you doing?
I'm doing very good, Tanner. You can tell because the background is all clear. Tomorrow is move out / move in date. Going to pick up the keys at the new house later tonight, about 3 p.m. or so. And I'm pumped, man. I couldn't go to bed until like 2 a.m. just because I was up dotting the I's, crossing the T's in my head, making sure I got everything packed up, making sure we have this set up. The cable or the Wi-Fi people are coming, the internet people. We got to transfer over the power, the energy, the water, all that stuff. But I'm excited. I'm feeling pretty good.
That's good. It's exciting, Grant. It's really exciting. Moving's stressful. It's tough.
It's stressful. My dad and I, when I was in college, and it was like you move into an apartment for the year, then you got to move out to come home for the summer, et cetera, et cetera. My dad and I always joked we should open a moving company because we're both those type of people where if there's something that's tedious or that you don't really want to do, we both get it done as quickly as we can. It could be mowing the grass, it could be moving somebody in, it could be driving, honestly, and more speeding. I'm just gonna put it out there. So we always joked about that. I have learned, I thought it would be the same way moving from an apartment to a house. And I've taken that same mindset into it, but it is so much more difficult. There's just so much more to do. There's more space to fill. There's more paperwork you got to fill out. Again, we have to set up all these different accounts, get the passwords. Well, part of me going to the house later is like, I got to put in the codes on the doors and everything. There's just a lot more moving parts than I'm used to.
So while you were worried about moving, I was worried about Lipscomb University last night beating Queens in the ASUN semifinals. And They came back. They were down 10 at one point, or 11. And then they came back. They won the first half after being down 11. Then they were down 10 at least in the second half. Came back, found a way to go to overtime, win in overtime. So where is Lipscomb? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I don't either. I kind of was sitting there realizing
it's in Nashville.
So I heard that on the broadcast last night. I think Queens is in North Carolina, and they were losing to Queens at one point. It's a Division II school in 2022, and Queens has screwed me a lot over the past couple of years. Like I feel like I bet against Queens, and they've killed me. But Lipscomb found a way to come back. Ladder challenge day one, we cashed it. We're on to day 2 today.
Wait a minute. You're telling me Queens is not in Queens? It's in North Carolina?
Yeah, it's Queens. I think it's in North Carolina. Yeah. There's got to be a Queens College in Queens, New York. I'm assuming, but this has to be. This is Queens, North Carolina, I believe, because they're playing in the Atlantic Sun, and I feel like the mid majors cannot afford to do what the Big Ten does and fly across the country to play games.
Look, I'll argue my expertise versus yours. I think we'd have a fun debate about that. I'm not going to argue your mid-major knowledge versus mine. That is your wheelhouse.
All right, nobody has mid-major knowledge. That's like there's no such thing as mid-major knowledge. So there was another game last night, Purdue-Fort Wayne. I forget who they were playing, and I can't think of it off the top of my head because it was over before it even started, at least in the second half. And Purdue-Fort Wayne had like an 100-spot advantage in KenPom, and then they got their ass kicked last night. So, you just don't know what you're going to get. Lafayette found a way to pull through. That was big for me. So, yeah, it's almost time for I'm excited to get rid of the mid-major college tournaments and like get into the big boys, the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC. But right now it's been all mid-majors on ESPN Plus, and the broadcasts are just horrendous.
Purdue, Fort Wayne lost to Youngstown State.
Youngstown State, yeah. So they had an 100-spot advantage in KenPom. And then last night, Lipscomb actually stormed the court because they're going to the ASUN championship game for the first time since 2020. So that was pretty cool. All 10 students that were at the game stormed the court.
Did I ever tell you about when I started my college experience, what I would do with my friends at the sports games?
No.
So, obviously I went to Virginia Tech, and we've talked about this before. I don't know if you'll remember the name of the school, but I actually started at a Division III school called the University of Mary Washington. And I went there, and, comes winter, I don't know, November, December, somewhere around there, probably November. And the basketball team has its first game. And so naturally, me and all my boys on the track team, all my friends really were freshmen as well. We all came in the same year. And I would like to think we were cool, normal. Like, I don't know if that's weird to say, but we're all under the impression that the basketball season is starting. We got to go out there. We're going to support, we're going to get rowdy, have some fun, blah, blah, blah. We show up. We're like the only people there, aside from some local parents. And I mean, it was a small gym. It's a D3 school, so I don't know how many people you could fit in there, no more than probably, one or 2,000, but there were probably 30 to 40 people there.
Yeah.
And so we were like, I mean, we kept going to the games, obviously, but we didn't get our fix for the hype and everything. So we started going to the volleyball games because that was the only thing that Mary Washington was ranked nationally in. And I think they might have even got up to number 1 in the nation for D3 schools at one point. And the volleyball games were lit. Like that's what the basketball crowd you expected, you got that at volleyball games. So we became volleyball fanatics for a good period there.
The old people that lived in the area, I bet, loved going to the volleyball games, right?
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
Yeah. So that's D3 though. And that's mid-major. Like that's the thing about college basketball. And we have it in football where there's 1A and there's 1AA or FBS, FCS, and then there's D2 and blah, 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 on and on. Like college basketball needs that. We need a 1A. We need a 1AA. And we need a 1 AAA, honestly, in college basketball, because half these schools would be Division III football schools if they had football.
Have you seen that they're talking about expanding March Madness?
I understand expanding March Madness more than doing a 32-team college football playoff, because at least I know for a fact there is evidence of 16 seeds defeating 1 seeds, even though it hasn't happened. There's evidence of 2 seeds defeating 15 seeds, even though it doesn't happen much. If you take a 16 seed in college football, if you take, I don't know, Liberty, maybe not Liberty. Give me a team that would probably be
Army, Tulane.
If you take Army and play them against Alabama, Alabama is going to beat them 10 times. A typical Alabama team. They're never going to lose, because football is that kind of sport. Or basketball, if you get the 5'11" white kid from Kalamazoo, Michigan, who gets hot from 3-point line and he's playing at whatever school, he can beat Michigan State,
That's the Jack Golke effect.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, too, Lipscomb, they got 4 white boys on the floor. None of them are over 6 feet tall. None of them. And they just the heart on those kids last night. They were bad. They knew it. They were outmatched, and they just found a way to come through. So it's always good seeing short white dudes playing basketball, like Peyton Pritchard the other night. Come on.
One of my buddies, so actually we also went to Mary Washington together. We went back to watch when we were freshmen in college. He had a really good friend who was playing for the state championship in high school at his old high school. So we drove down to Richmond, Virginia, and we went to watch the game. The game was at VCU. And this guy, he's now in the NBA, by the way. It's Jordan Miller. Actually, a few days ago, he signed a 4-year contract with the Clippers. He doesn't play a ton, but he's a good player. He got a 4-year deal, which obviously means the Clippers they value him. And so this is a legitimate NBA guy. And he was surrounded by 4 other white guys, tallest one of them being like 6'1". And they did nothing but stand 5 feet beyond the 3-point line and just shoot from out there. They would go bombs away. And then this guy, the Clippers guy, Jordan Miller, he would do everything else inside the arc. And that was their whole offensive strategy.
But if you're a short white guy and you want to play basketball, you need to be a great shooter. Like even Rick Pitino the other day, he was talking about who his best shooter is of all time. And I forget who it was, but it was a white guy. That sticks in my head, I'm
going to see if I can Google it real quick because I want to know who it was.
Yeah, you have to be if you're a white guy, you got to be a great shooter. White and short, you got no option. And everyone knows that. It's a common fact.
I don't find it. I'll look for it afterwards. I'll text you.
Anyways, Grant, one more question before we get into the show. Is Peyton Pritchard's contract the best in NBA history?
So how much is he making right now?
Making about $7 million a year, I think. I think it was like a 4-year, $28 million deal.
4 for 30. Okay, so 7.5. And I remember when they gave it to him, there's a lot of confusion as well because Pritchard had been in their rotation and then they basically took him out of it. And then they gave him that deal. So everyone's like, why? Well, what's the point? And a lot of people thought he wasn't going to be re-signed. Some people were thinking, okay, maybe they're signing him just to trade him. And now he's the odds-on favorite to win 6th Man of the Year. To answer your question, it's him. I'll give you a few names. Him, Austin Reeves, because he's making less than $20 million a year for 4 years. This is going to go under the radar. Chris Dunn for the Clippers. He's on I don't know how many years it is. I think it might be 3. It's basically a minimum deal. And right now he's the best perimeter defender in the NBA. Jalen Brunson turned down $100 million so that other guys could sign. I think those would be the 4 at the top of my list.
What's crazy though, too, like talking about Austin Reeves for $20 million a year, you were saying just under.
Yeah.
Like DK Metcalf, and we're going to talk about him on the show. It wants 30 million a year. Like he needs 30 million a year. That's the mark. And like Austin Reeves has a small NBA contract at 20 million a year. Isn't it just crazy the differences between NBA and NFL money?
It's also crazy the differences between position in the NFL. The Rams just signed Tutu Atwell for 1 year, $10 million. Derrick Henry is making $8 million.
It's wild. But you know what, too? I will say, like, you look at baseball money now, that's a whole different beast. The top of baseball money, majority baseball money is not doing great, but the top guys are doing unbelievable. Obviously, Juan Soto's kids are going to be taken care. His kids are all going to be taken care of for life. With that being said, though, the majority of these guys, no matter what they're making, even Peyton Pritchard making $7 million a year, he walks away from his NBA career when it's all said and done, probably $50-60 million in the bank, maybe 70, who knows. You invest it right, you're all set up well for life. So at one point, like I respect Jalen Brunson because he took the step back because he wanted to win. And at the same time, too, when there's 100 million versus 150 million, nobody wants to lose $50 million or whatever amount that is. But I would rather have the chance to win when I know no matter what I'm making, I'm still set up well for my life and my kid's life and my kid's life.
It also helps Jalen that his dad was a long-time NBA player as well. So he had the security before that. This is really going all over the place. But Brock Purdy right now, the 49ers offered him $45 million. People are saying he should argue for 60. And then there's other people coming in saying, well, if he wants to do the right thing, if he really wants to compete for a championship, then he should take the 45, potentially take the $15 million a year hit. And I get that. That is the right thing to do from that perspective. But this is also Mr. Irrelevant, a guy who, relatively speaking, has not made any money up to this point in time. And it's like, this is his first payday. He didn't have that security before. He didn't grow up in luxury. So while it might be the right thing to do, if I can go get 60 million a year on the open market, then I wouldn't fault him for doing that.
I'm taking 45. If I'm Mr. Irrelevant and I had my chance to start and I'm getting a $45 million deal, like Baker took a pay cut for Tampa, more than Baker probably could have went to the open market and got more. He stayed. You got a guy in a position who we know maybe not this year, but in the coming seasons, the 49ers will be in a position to win because that's just their organization in general. You got a guy who hasn't made any money, Mr. Irrelevant, who never thought he would be in that position. Now you got a chance to sign a $45 million contract and add pieces to win. At the end of the day, $15 million is a lot. With that being said, though, it's still $45 million that you have a chance to lock in right now and be the future of the franchise for the 49ers.
I personally would take the 45, maybe negotiate and get up to 50. But point being, I would take the cut to stay with the team that I think puts me in a chance to succeed. But also, it's easier said than done. If Brock Purdy takes 15 million less a year, we don't care. But if someone comes to me and is like, hey, we're not going to pay you those 15 million per year, then I might feel differently.
Yeah, definitely. But anyways, Grant, we got a lot to talk about today. So before we get into the rest of the show, we had a nice money discussion here. Tell the people why they need to check out WSN and subscribe. We've been at 151 subscribers too long. I want to get at least 152 from this. So please, people, subscribe.
Yeah, please. Before we go any further, this is a timeout. You got 5 seconds to hit the subscribe button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang. If you want to have Brock Purdy type of money, if you want to have Austin Reeves, Jalen Brunson type money, Peyton Pritchard money, go to WSN.com. Tanner, myself, a whole team of experts, we are talking about the biggest games in sports. We're sharing our betting picks, looking at futures odds, and if you're lucky, you're going to find some promo codes to get you some more bonus bets on the sports books. I'm joking about getting the Brock Purdy money, but the point is, if you want analysis from some very intelligent people, some veterans of the sports betting industry, go to WSN.com, the World Sports Network. You will get it all right there. WSN.com.
WSN.com and subscribe. You gotta subscribe. No chance to not subscribe to the show. You have to subscribe. All right. So Bronny, Lakers, Stephen A. Smith, Grant, break it down.
So Lakers, huge win at home against the New York Knicks last night, 113-109 in overtime. Luka and LeBron, both 30-point double-doubles. Jalen Brunson, 39 points, left with a minute left. Looks like some sort of ankle injury. It was one of those classic basketball injuries where a guy lands and there's a foot under him and he rolls his ankle. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully it's not a severe sprain or even a break. We'll see. But the big news was at the end of the game because there's clips going around And LeBron is basically confronting Stephen A. Smith, who was in the crowd in attendance. They're talking on the sideline, and Stephen A. Smith is giving him eye contact. LeBron is not yelling, but forcefully talking. And you can see he's agitated and he says something, then he walks away. I'm not a great lip reader. I'm actually pretty terrible. I'm horrible at it whenever I have to do it for myself. But all the lip reading experts online are saying LeBron said to Stephen A. in this 7-second clip, I don't care, bro. Keep my son out of this shit, bro. And if that is what happened, then I would assume they're talking about a few things that Stephen A. has said about Bronny, both on First Take and on his podcast. Now, his comments have, the wording has changed over time, but it has felt like Stephen A. has been talking out of both sides of his mouth. And I love Stephen A., so I'm not here to bash him. But on one hand, he has said numerous times he thinks Bronny will be a legit NBA player one day, but he's not ready for it right now. On the other hand, he has said LeBron should be ashamed of himself for putting Bronny in this position, for putting the Lakers in this position where they felt forced to draft him, and JJ Redick feels forced to put him on the court. So, first of all, you can't have it both ways. You got to pick a side here. Secondly, for me personally, the fact you even suggest LeBron should be ashamed of himself, I get it's a unique situation because you're taught not to talk about somebody's kid, but in this case, the kid is a professional athlete, and it's Stephen A's job to critique professional athletes. But when you say somebody should be ashamed for a personal decision, I view that as crossing the line. You're targeting somebody's kid.
I do remember there was a time when, I forget what episode of First Take it was, but Stephen A. Smith said LeBron as a father, like that's how he prefaced it, like don't do this kind of thing. Yeah. Again, I don't remember what episode that was. Here's my biggest thing. Bronny should be playing college basketball right now. If Bronny was not named James, he would be playing college basketball right. As great as he's been in the G League, as outstanding as he has been in the G League, he missed his entire freshman season virtually because of the heart problem. So if he wasn't named Bronny James and LeBron wasn't towards the end of his career, he probably would not be playing in the NBA right now, no matter how great he's been in the G League. So just off that alone, he is in the NBA because of his father, even though he's proven that he can hang in the G League. He hasn't played a ton of NBA minutes as of late, right? You know, earlier in the season, he was playing a lot more. But at the same time, too, LeBron got the Lakers to draft Bronny to set history and play with his son. And that is the price. The price you're going to pay is you're going to get negative media attention about it. He can confront Stephen A. Smith all he wants, but Stephen A. Smith's entitled to say whatever he wants because it was a hot topic and a hot storyline and they're on a debate show. So that's where I'm at. LeBron's almost got to be ready for what's coming. And it's saying, keep my kid out of your mouth. Like, no, you brought your kid up into the situation. That was a big storyline. Stephen A. Smith's entitled to talk about it, I think, however he wants to do. And he's a flip-flopper. He's always been a flip-flopper, no matter what it is. So it depends on the day. You know, I'm sure in Stephen A. Smith's mind, he's probably said some good things about Bronny. He said some bad things, but in his mind, like, he changes his opinion a lot.
So I would agree that Stephen A. Smith is entitled to talk about Bronny in whatever context he wants. Where I have the issue is he talks about LeBron to talk about Bronny. That's my issue. If Stephen A. went on to Smith and said Bronny is the worst basketball player I've ever seen, it's absurd he's in the NBA, he should never be getting any minutes, he should be bagging groceries at your local Publix, that's fine. That's all critiques about what is happening on the game. When you invoke the word shame, LeBron should feel shame for forcing Bronny to be in this position. Again, that's where we're leaving sports. We are now having a personal attack about a father's decision making, and that's my issue. I agree with pretty much everything else you said, though. If Bronny's going to be in this position, he has to be subject to criticism, and LeBron has to be ready for him to be subject to criticism. But again, it's the difference of criticizing Bronny versus criticizing LeBron's decisions as a father. Before we go any further, I do also want to point out Bronny was drafted 55th. There are only 60 picks in the draft. Most of the time, guys drafted 55th don't contribute to NBA rosters. So I have a list of them, and I'm going to read the 55th picks in the last however many drafts. Bronny James this year, Isaiah Wong, who we both hated at Miami, Guy Santos, Aaron Wiggins is the best player we're going to get to on this list because Aaron Wiggins is a legit player. Jay Scrubb, his last name's literally Scrub. Kyle Guy, Arnaldus Kulbaka, Nigel Williams-Goss, Marcus Page, Cody Lillane, Samaje Christian, Joffrey Laverne, Darius Johnson Odom, Etwan Moore, Jeremy Evans, Herbert Hill, Lawrence Roberts, Rick Rickert, Robertus Javtakas.
Yeah, nobody. That's here's the thing though. You should be ashamed of yourself to, like Stephen A saying that to LeBron. And again, I think this probably looks better now that he's played well in the G League, but you took your kid out of college to play with him virtually. The best thing for his development would have been to stay at USC. And I firmly believe that, because he didn't get the college experience of playing there because of what happened. Two, he didn't play well there when he was on the floor. It's like, give him the chance to mature in college basketball. And if LeBron was 5 years younger at this point and he was going to play another 5-6 years, who knows? Like I'm sure he would have done that. But the process for him was rushed. So I can maybe it didn't come off right with Stephen A. Smith, but ashamed of yourself when Bronny is looking like terrible in his first few NBA games and he's on the floor with LeBron as like as a show pony, basically. So I understand why he said it, and I understand why LeBron's mad at that too. But LeBron needs to be ready for this criticism in the sense of he brought his kid up to the big time when he was not ready to be brought up to the big time.
I agree with you about Bronny getting the best development in college. The thing is, though, he wasn't even starting for USC. He wasn't playing a ton of minutes. And when JJ Redick was hired, and I forget which came first. Actually, I do remember JJ got hired like a few days before the draft, because there's this whole thing about, is JJ even going to know who they want to pick? And of course, they get Dalton Connect. And everybody was like, JJ didn't know anything about him, so he just took the best shooter. But what I'm going with this is, when JJ was hired, I remember in his opening press conference, he said he wanted the Lakers to be a developmental program. They wanted to focus on bringing up young guys. I don't know if he was told to say that because it was about Bronny, or he genuinely wants to do that. And JJ has improved a lot of these Lakers guys. So I think there is an argument to be made, because Bronny wasn't starting at USC and wasn't guaranteed minutes. It was kind of a coin flip, which would be better for his development, being in the G League or being in college. One thing that I want to get to, though, in all of this is that nepotism exists. I don't know why we're acting like this is some shocking revelation because LeBron James got what he wanted.
No,
Kawhi got his family to fly on the team plane. I forget who. I wish I could remember. There's some NBA player whose brother-in-law got hired, I believe, by the Knicks, because the Knicks thought they were going to get this guy. The Denver Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett just because they thought they had a chance at getting Aaron Rodgers. If you apply for a job right now and you don't know anybody else, and somebody you're going up against knows somebody who works at that company, they're going to get the job before you. If you have no qualifications, but you graduate from college and your dad is the CEO of a company, he's going to get you a job. That's just how it goes. And at the end of the day, if drafting Bronny extends LeBron's career even one more year, that's great for the Lakers. That is great for the NBA, because they depend on him and Steph for ratings. That's great for Stephen A. Smith, because LeBron is making Stephen A. an awful lot of money.
No, 100% nepotism does exist. You can't hate the decision, but you need to be ready for the impact of the decision. And one of those is Stephen A. Smith saying LeBron should be ashamed of himself, because to the outside world, if this wasn't Bronny James, he would, like you said, when he wasn't guaranteed minutes at USC. If he wasn't guaranteed minutes at USC, how is he playing on an NBA floor? It's because of his last name. So LeBron and Stephen A. Smith, I get why Stephen A. Smith said ashamed. I get why LeBron's upset, because now you're not targeting him, you're targeting his kid. And then Papa Bear comes into play. And, so I understand it from all sides. I don't think there's an issue with any of it. I think Stephen A. Smith can say LeBron should be ashamed, because honestly, if the kid wasn't named Bronny James, he wouldn't be in the NBA. And then from LeBron's perspective, if Stephen A. Smith's coming after his kid, he's obviously going to get more upset than him coming after, LeBron. So I understand all of it. It all makes sense. I think it's all valid. I think everyone's valid. He probably could have handled it. I don't know, maybe handle a little better, like a phone call behind the scenes. But again, that's just what LeBron was ready for last night.
Well, so Stephen A. did say on his show, I don't know when, I think it was a few weeks ago, that he got a call from people at Clutch, and they basically said, hey, watch your mouth about what you're saying about Bronny. Stephen A went on his podcast, revealed the details of this phone call, and said he wasn't going to stop talking about it while playing a montage of Bronny's lowlights.
Well, it's ratings, it's media. Like LeBron's the GOAT of the NBA, or one, okay, top two, right? I mean, you want Jordan or LeBron. Stephen A. Smith is the GOAT of the media world. Like Stephen A. Smith ain't going to stop for LeBron, nor should he, because in his field he is LeBron. So that's where if Clutch calls Stephen A. Smith up, and Stephen A. Smith has no fear of being fired, right? ESPN needs ratings. And, Stephen A. Smith's going to become, I don't know if he signed the contract, he's going to become the highest paid media personality in ESPN history, right?
He's going to be making twice as much as Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah. Okay. So right there, he's making twice as much as Peyton Pritchard. He ain't stopping for LeBron. So if Clutch calls him up, what's he not going to get invited to the Clutch party at the NBA Finals? Like, come on, it don't matter.
Oh, no, I hear everything you're saying. I was bringing that up because you had said LeBron maybe should have handled this differently, get on a phone. And it's like, well, they tried that and it didn't work. The reason I think this is so significant is I think, I don't know. I don't know. I'm speculating. I think part of the reason Stephen A. and Skip actually has made a career of just hating on LeBron. Stephen A. has not done that. But they have both, as the years have gone on and as LeBron has legitimized his GOAT case more and more, they have both been more and more standoffish. It's the more LeBron does, it's like the more they try to chop him down. I think the reason for that is LeBron has never addressed them at any point in his career. I think they wanted to get him back and forths. I think they wanted to either have fights with him or to kiss and make friends out of it. And LeBron just never acknowledged them. So part of the reason I think this is so significant is he not only acknowledged him, he went straight to his face, told him in the basketball arena for the whole world to see, which, like you said, this is a Papa Bear moment of, you're talking about my son, I'm coming to protect what's mine.
Yeah. And that's something that we haven't seen from LeBron throughout his career. Like like you said, just one of the reasons LeBron has been such a successful athlete, not because of what he's done on the floor. Obviously what he's done on the floor has been great, but he's not gotten into trouble at all. There's been no trouble. There's been no drama. And that's the reason that he's been elevated to this point where he's at, in addition to what he does on the floor. I think probably the best way to handle this situation, if LeBron was angry, and I'm sure this has happened because I'd be shocked if it hadn't, JJ Redick needed to call Stephen A. Smith up, because I think Stephen A. Smith would have the respect for JJ Redick because he worked with him and was a coworker, and we know he respects him. So that probably would have been a better plan of attack than LeBron's cronies calling up Stephen A. Smith saying, don't talk about these. Like, who the hell are you?
That's a great take, Tanner. I gotta say, that is a great take.
It would have been better, right? Like JJ calls him up. So Stephen A., what are you doing talking about Bronny like this? Like, just can we drop the Bronny talk? Like, because out of that respect, like Stephen A. Smith's worked in the media field too. He knows what ESPN wants. Half the time, I'm sure Stephen A. Smith's getting a rundown from producers and stuff he doesn't even want to talk about. He's just great. He's a great talker.
Oh yeah, like when was it him and Kai Cenat were debating? Like they have the Jordan GOAT debate. I've seen Stephen A. talking about the home run derby. I've seen him talking about the Four Nations hockey tournaments. Like, I know he does not watch this stuff. He does not care about this stuff, but he's got to talk about it.
No, Bronny drives ratings. They're going to talk about Bronny. If Stephen A. Smith says something, and Stephen A. Smith knows exactly what he's doing. Nothing he says is not calculated. So I think it's good on all sides. I think JJ Redick probably could have had a bigger impact on how Stephen A. Smith says this stuff. Even now, I also believe too, Clutch calling up Stephen A. Smith and Stephen A. Smith going on his podcast and revealing this data. I don't think that would have changed LeBron saying something to him. I think LeBron had his opportunity to be in front of him and address Stephen A. Smith for everything he said over the period. And I'm sure that didn't help, but I think there would have been a confrontation no matter what.
I think if Stephen A. was receptive on the phone, maybe LeBron does call him. Because also these comments that Stephen A. Smith said, again, they happened a few weeks, maybe a month ago. So like LeBron was still thinking about this. This didn't just happen yesterday and it was convenient. It's like LeBron knew, I'm going to see him here. He will be at this game, or just the next time I see him at a game, I'm going to go talk to him.
Big overtime win too. Like that also, this happened after the game.
Yeah,
like the emotion,
that's what it looks like. Like he's got the towel on his shoulders and everything. So
the emotions of the overtime win probably also is like, I'm going to do it. I feel
Yeah,
like
testosterone was running through the room.
Yeah, and good for LeBron. He's defending his kid, and you know what? Good for Stephen A. Smith because he's making the bag by saying what he wants to say. I have no problems with any of it all. It's Stephen A. Smith's going to get this from LeBron. LeBron should get this from Stephen A. Smith. I think it's all warranted.
Speaking of Stephen A. Smith and the bag, that new contract, I think it's either 4 or 5 years, 100 million. Did you see the addendum that it allows him to talk more freely about politics? Are we going to be getting like political debates on First Take now?
I don't think we're going to get political debates on First Take. You know what? I listen to Pat McAfee like pretty much every day. I do not know how ESPN, like the array of content, and I love McAfee. McAfee makes ESPN, and so does Stephen A. Smith and all that. But when you take out First Take, ESPN's a pretty dull. It's a live sports programming show, so you need McAfee in there. I'm listening to McAfee talk about with Schefter about the girl at Ole Miss who banged the dad, and whether that's true or not, because now he's getting sued by her for like I listened to that and I'm just like, I don't even know how ESPN can have this on their airways, like with their higher up. So I'm interested to hear what this addendum, like what's going to happen with politics. So I'm not going to rule it out because of what's happened with Pat McAfee and what he talks about. However, I don't think it's likely. And if Stephen A. Smith, because I know he's talking about potentially running for president, if he decides to run for president, that's going to be the dumbest thing ever. Take your bag, just stay on sports. Like you're making more money. Don't do it.
Well, he said like a bunch of times, I don't want to do it. I don't want to run for president. And one of the things he has cited is I would make a whole lot more money doing what I'm doing now than being the president. Basically, what he said is if the American people come to me and say, we don't feel there's a better option than you, then that combined with his passion for debating, and he believes he could beat any political figure in a debate on the stage. He said those two things would have him consider it. He never said he would do it. He said that would be the reason to consider it.
Well, that's what Trump says too. Like Trump's like, I don't want to do this, but it comes down to it's like when you have all the money in the world, like look at Elon. Elon's having so much fun right now doing what he's doing because he's got all the money in the world. So this is something different for him. So maybe that could be the case for Stephen A. Smith. I would like to see JD Vance versus Stephen A. Smith in a debate. I think that would be electric.
I want to see Stephen A. Smith actually debate politics because I don't think political talking heads, and I'm not pointing at any side or any one person. It could be commentators, analysts, candidates. They all think they're insufferable. I want to see them what insufferable really is. I want them to see what an angry Stephen A. Smith is like.
Stephen A. Smith would destroy everybody in the Democratic Party. Destroy. I think JD is going to give him a run for his money because JD is very smart. And not saying there's not Democrats who are smart, but Democrats, if Democrats had a loaded bench, Stephen A. Smith wouldn't be considered to run for president.
That's also what he has said.
Yeah, sure.
These are his words. Don't get mad at us. These are Stephen A. Smith's words. Well, he has said the Democrats don't have somebody ready to step up, and that's why I am polling so well.
Well, yeah, I mean that doesn't take a political party to know that, like, if you're sitting here on the outside and you're looking in, and it's like you should be able to know that the Republicans have a loaded bench, the Democrats don't, and they need people, so that's why Stephen A. Smith's going to lean that way. And Stephen A. Smith probably be a little more bipartisan, I would say, because he does go on Fox, he does go on CNN, right?
He goes everywhere.
He goes everywhere. So I don't know if Stephen A. Smith's the answer for the Democrats, but it probably gives them a better chance to win than people that they have right now.
Yeah, I agree with you on the bipartisanship. He has said, like, I would only run for a Democrat because there's an opening. He says all the time he's a centrist. He sides with both parties, and that's why he thinks he could be a good candidate.
Stephen A. or Tim Walz, Grant.
But listen, we're not revealing politics here. And everybody out there, you probably don't know what Tanner and what our actual political opinions are. So don't go rushing to judgments here. We're just relaying the news. That's all.
No, we're just preaching what's normal political knowledge. But anyways, Grant, NBA talk. We good here?
Big game on Saturday. Celtics, Lakers in Boston, Tanner. What is a win expected and is a loss unexcusable for the C's?
No, first off, Grant, here's the thing. Like, you guys are parading around after beating the Knicks at home in overtime. Like, we just beat the Knicks. Like, we don't.
Who's you guys? I'm impartial.
You're a Lakers fan.
I'm unbiased.
You're a Lakers fan. So anyways, like when we beat if we beat the Knicks in overtime, like we wouldn't be jumping up and down like this is the greatest day in the world. We just beat the Knicks. Like we know the Knicks don't stand a chance against us. We don't celebrate those wins because even though they're the 3rd seed in the East right now, it does not matter. We're better than them.
How about the Nuggets in Denver by 23 points?
You guys beat the Nuggets in Denver by 23 points. When did that come?
The Lakers did. There's no you guys. The Lakers did, yes.
We just beat the Nuggets too at home. And again, we didn't look great, but we still Tatum didn't do anything in that game, I believe, and we were still fine. So we have Peyton Pritchard and Derek White looking like the best 1-2 punch in the NBA right now. So I think we're good no matter what, if we win or not. It's probably a bigger game for you guys, truthfully. You need it more than we do. We lose to you guys. Like we have our blinders right now. We don't need to play another game. Cleveland Eastern Conference Finals. That's what we're locked in on. So if they win or lose, I don't think it matters. I think it would be a bigger boost for the Lakers to go out and win the game just to keep building their confidence. Like this team's doing really well. Or like Celtics, you're going to be the Eastern Conference Finals. You're going to be on the road in Game 7. That's what you're thinking of.
I'm 1000% with you on blinders, Cavs Eastern Conference Finals. That is the perfect way to put it. Don't care about anything else. There's no possibility they don't make the conference finals. And with the way the standings are, it would have to be the Cavs. The Cavs-Knicks might be a good series. I don't know. The Knicks don't seem like they can beat a good team. I think we've talked about it before. Cavs-Celtics, that should be what you get in the conference finals. I think it is bigger.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
The Cavs play with fire every night. There's
so
going to
Celtics.
Celtics have been a much better team at getting out in front of teams early this year in their wins.
That's not true. That's sorry. True. It's just not true.
No, it's true.
The Cavs have lost half as many games and they have a much better point differential.
They come from behind. The Cavs come from behind more than the Celtics do. When the Celtics lose, the Celtics lose. They're not in the game.
I think there's a lot of recency bias because the Cavs had that happen like 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks.
You can't do that every night. When Boston turns it up and you got Peyton Pritchard and Derek White doing what they're doing, combined with Tatum, Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, you can't get away with that. Can't get away with that, Grant.
I mean, I agree, but at the same time, if you're the Celtics, you can't get away with taking your foot off the gas because the Cavs come back from 23 down.
They won't. That was a lesson. They learned their lesson that game. That's a perfect end for Joe Mazzulla.
See, we disagree there. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen to the Celtics. I think it's going to go both ways. I think in a series with these teams, because they are so good at shooting the three, I think you're going to see that happen multiple times in a 7-game series. I think there will be multiple 15-point comebacks.
I think so too. But with that being said, the Celtics are, even though Cleveland can beat Boston, the Celtics are clearly the better team. They will be the favorite. They will be minus 200 in that series to open up because that's what it is right now, virtually. So they're going to be ready to go.
Going back to this Lakers-Celtics game, I'm with you that it means more for the Lakers, but that's probably the case with any team in the league because the Celtics are the defending champions. So they kind of, there's this, it's always like, we don't care what you do in the regular season until you prove it in the postseason. Well, the Celtics, they proved it. So now we don't really have to value the regular season. The Lakers, it's a tall ask. I mean, they've won 18 of their last 21 games. They've had the best defense in the league for 2 months, just went to overtime. Like, they're going to lose at some point. I think they've beat 10 straight teams with winning records. So if they lose, it's not going to make me, or it shouldn't make anybody think less of the Lakers if they lose this game, but it would still mean more for them.
All right, so Grant's suddenly no longer here. He had a fire alarm going off in his building, and that's why I got a little jumbled there before. But anyways, guys, we're going to save the rest of our show for next week. We're going to talk a little football, but we'll save that. Got a huge NBA discussion in here today. Can the Lakers beat the Celtics in Boston? If they do, does it matter for Boston? Not really. The Celtics are the balls. They're going all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, at least, and probably the NBA Finals. Lakers, I think they could do something and take down OKC. A lot of things got to go right for them, and same thing with the Denver Nuggets in the West. But OKC's not out of the woods yet. I don't think their odds reflect where they're at. Boston's got the odds, the favorable odds, because in the end of the day, they've proven it. They can go win another one and be back-to-back, where OKC just hadn't simply done that. So we are going to save that debate for another time. We're going to save a little NFL for next week, guys. We'll have a lot to talk about as free agency opens up and these teams start getting after it with players. We've already had a ton of stuff going on in the NFL world. So make sure you guys subscribe. We want to get above 151 for this show. So make sure you smash that subscribe button, like, share, do it all, guys. And we will see you next time for another episode of Ride the Line.